Hello. We'll continue work on a card game. We are affectionately, ironically, calling Shuffle Wars. It is a battle card game, so Shuffle Wars is, about as lazy as we can get with that. Allow me to move on to our game and demonstrate the game as it is currently. It's a work in progress, of course. That's what this stream is about. Um, what we have is built up a series of individual features of the game. And this could be everything from visual effects to combat mechanics. The point is, this is not how the game will look. And not only were we not done with all the features we want to portray in our game, but we literally are going to remake the game. We are planning to remake the game once all these features are done, because the features, imagine building a table. A table you've built, and it's got a table surface, of course, a tabletop, and then four legs, right? Well, without the four legs all together, you can't really put the tabletop on. Can't put the four legs on without the tabletop. I mean, all the pieces need to be put together. So literally, we are building individual pieces. At first it was in isolation and it looked very rough. Now there are more pieces to see together, but the illusion is, oh, cool, you've got this game going on, and it looks pretty crappy. No, 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 no. We have this game going on, and we have only some of the features in place, and other features are absolutely not in place. In fact, there are some features that we have ideas for, and we haven't decided yet whether the rules will be implemented one way or another. We are going to let all the features be built, and then we're going to test with implementation of different rules of the game so that we can decide how the game should be best put together and it will be more fun. I literally can't test features that aren't in place. So we're building these features. We have a pretty good guess about what features will be in the game. We've made some minor changes while we built this much, but for the most part, there are features that are being put together, and then we're going to test them. So we are looking at a work in progress that is going to lead us to be able to test a bunch of options for the rules of the game. It's at that point that we're going to have a really good sense of what the game will actually be like. We can absolutely play with different changes to the rules that make it more fun, more tactical, more exciting, more fair. And then we will have all of the pieces represented in some form that will show us exactly how to go ahead and build the game again, as I said. But with a lot of the features that we need already figured out, right? And some improvements already in mind, like the look of these cards, for example. This is going to be a two-step process. We are approaching the end of the first step. We have a lot of this game already figured out. Okay, so I have, as of yesterday, made it so that we can drag our cards onto the table. And at first, on the first round, our option is to place 3 cards on the table. Each card can be in a particular lane, center, left, or right, and it can be in a particular attack order. Up near the front, middle, or back. Because there's 3 cards, it is effectively a 3x3 grid, or 9 squares that they can be placed in. And this was what we worked on yesterday. The work was to extend what was just hard-coded in for, or in other words, set and not changeable for 3 cards to place down in a 3x3 grid. We changed it so that now, when we continue this battle and go on to round 2, we will have the ability to place 4 cards in a 4x4 grid. So that change, well, took a little math, took a little trial and error, and we'll continue that. What we have is the ability to if I go to the next round, we'll check it out. We have the ability to place now 4 cards. It is not in the center anymore. It will be just off to the side now, and there's 4 lanes and 4 attack positions. Cool. And this works for an overtime round as well, where there's 5 cards to place down, and it is a 5x5 grid. Cool. But as I mentioned yesterday, there's a visual indicator that could really help here. Seeing where the card will be placed down on the table. I'm going to place one here. I'm going to take another one. I'm going to inspect it a little bit, figure out which one I want, and then I'm going to place that one there. I'm going to look at others. I'm going to place that one there, and I'm going to look at another one, and I'll place it there. Okay. And then I do play, which is to say I lay them down on the table. Well, when they lay on the table, they look like this. And this is roughly indicating the 4 lanes and the 4 attack positions. Well, I need to, in the other view, when we're looking across the table, indicate this square, this rectangle. This space where it will lay down will help the player understand what the formation of these cards will be as they go into battle. Later, and this is not implemented yet, but later, that formation will really matter, because right now it is, again, hard-coded or not changeable, that these cards will simply be in this angled formation, and they will simply run into each other one by one. So 2 more cards join the battle each time, and that's not changeable. Well, the thought is the formation should be controllable by the player. And so as the formation advances, which cards join the battle, and how this actually comes together to make the larger battle step by step is going to be different depending on this person's formation and that player's formation. It's not implemented yet. It's going to take a little more thought about how these cards join battle. And there's actually an extra rule that we haven't implemented yet about not being able to attack across an empty lane. This would all need to be in place before that part of our games, that feature of our battle is put together. But what we can do is continue with this mechanism, which looks great now, but should have that square on the ground. It's nice to be able to see the card that we're placing there with its picture and the stats, yes. But we also need to really indicate to the player this is going to be placed on the table at this formation. As we let go, instead of it going back into the hand, what I actually want to be able to do is leave it there. It will be stood up, but there will be like a square laying flat on the table exactly where this will lay down when we do play. In other words, I want to add an extra visuals item to this mechanism that is a square, roughly looking like the border, this, the border, colored border on the edge of this card, roughly like that, but laying flat on the table. And while I'm at it, let's point out the fact that these items on the table are actually raised up, and so they're actually intersecting with our cards. And I might have to deal with that too. So there's some visual items I kind of want to fix, and potentially we need to make a brand new art item to make this work. To make the colored border on this card, there's two items. One is the full size of the square that makes up the card, and then there's a smaller one that sits on top. The smaller one that sits on top is white, and the larger one is colored. So there can be a border, but it's really just two things, one on top of the other. A white one on top of a solid color, larger square behind it. So this is not exactly usable. I can't just take this and throw this on there. I mean, I guess I could make a white square with a colored border, but first things first. I would like to create a square that looks. It's just coloring the edge. I want it to look distinct as well from this border on the card itself. I literally just need to have the shape of the card, but laying flat on the table. In fact, for right now, I might just throw a square on there, and that'll be good enough. I'll use the card itself to get the dimensions, but I may actually create a new art item to make it look fancy and distinct and different, and I'll bet I need to use a different color than these other colors. All these colors are terrible. All this art needs to change eventually, but I don't care about that now. What I do care about is making this representation look reasonably like what I want the player to see when they lay cards down, because that's one of two parts of the game, that part and this part. These two views are distinct and important for us to work out and make sure we know how it works so we can move forward. All right. So I need to make a new item. An original item that will be spawned and used during the placement of cards on the table. I will use the same script that is used here for inspecting cards and for dragging cards on the table, because this has all the data I need to actually place the thing on the table, so I'll use that. I'm going to take a quick look, though, at the table itself, because these items on the table, this decoration is literally raised up a lot farther than I thought it was. Let's take a look. Yeah. So these items aren't really that high off the table surface, but it's high enough that as I grab items, as I grab cards and sort of move them around, it's clearly like intersecting these things. So, I'm actually intersecting the table itself. All right. Well, this is the same script. It's placing these cards along this grid, and I have also the ability to indicate exactly where on the table. So, is this really? It's just not very high off the table. Okay. Let's look at it. Oh, by the way, this is a script we were working on yesterday to make this happen with, the grid of 3 or 4x4 or 5x5. I was wondering about this. It's just a hack that I didn't like. And I was actually curious if I just got rid of this now, because I've made changes to how this works, and I perhaps do not need that hack anymore. I'm curious. That hack, that line of code was literally used in the placement vertically here. And the problem was it actually placed an extra 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what I'm looking for. 1, 2, 3, 4 across, and 1, 2, 3, 4 up and down. And I don't see the fourth one or a fifth one up and down. That was what it was preventing. So I think this has actually been fixed. One of the last things I did was to adjust this script for a minor issue with where the mouse was in relation to the screen so that I could place cards appropriately. And I adjusted it enough, and I think that was actually causing the problem that I used that hack for in the first place. So you don't care, but boy, I sure do. That soothes my nerd brain to get rid of that hack because it was bugging me that it was even there in the first place. In other words, I had caused a problem that I wasn't fixing, and then I hacked the solution with some extra code that I knew was wrong, and just I needed to fix that, so I'm glad it's done. Okay, so I literally tested, and that's good, and let's move on. This is setting the position of cards on the table, and this -5 is most likely why it's inside the table. Let's find out. This is a hard-coded number. In other words, I'm suspicious of it immediately because I think if I just raise this up a couple of units, instead of -5, I'll go -3. And I want to just look at where the cards sit now. I might actually change the number wildly to really see it, but I have a feeling, yeah, there we go. So it is like well off the table now. It's not intersecting anything. Great. Let's see what that looks like if I see it from the side here. I literally want to view it at the edge of the table. The table is really just a card with some extra cards on top of it, but I want to see, where is this sitting? Oh, it's way above. Cool. Okay, so I have lots of room. That's good. I'm going to lower it a little more. I just don't want it to be intersecting the table, you know? And I believe we have reached a good position. It is not intersecting any of the other elements. Excellent. Good. All right. I literally put these decorative squares on the tabletop so that you could clearly see what's going on as it zooms in, moves around, and all that stuff, because when it was just gray, you couldn't tell. So it's easier to see now. Cool. Great. I don't need to continue playing. I'm testing right now. So good. That was a little bit of a fix. This position where I'm placing the card, it's a bit at an angle because it's meant to be facing the camera, roughly. It's roughly the same angle as in fact, I think it is the same angle as the cards in your hand. The position that I'm setting here, however, is a good one. What I just adjusted is the height of it off the table. This is really where we want to place a item that is indicating clearly that a card is laid on the table. I kind of want to just double check this in the engine again, what this looks like. So I'm just going to just start the round and now look at where these end up. So all game engines, modern game engines, have the ability to keep the engine running, the game running, while you see what's going on. In this case, what we're looking at is everything is like well off the table, and you're like, what's going on? Well, we are viewing it from a camera that is meant to take out all the perspective and look at it as if it were 2D. So when we see it from the viewpoint that the player sees, it looks like, excuse me, it looks like it is sitting right on the table. It is totally not, but we don't care. We are carrying the illusion, and it's totally fine. What I do care about, though, is what's the size of this card, and the actual dimensions of it and everything. It is literally this card prefab, but I want to just make sure that what we see here, we already did this yesterday to make sure that the card position was correct and we could figure out the lanes and the attack order positions. Well, now it's time to look at the size and shape of this. And here's that back that I was telling you about. This is a big square, and it can be it's covering the back, and then the front is another big square that I have literally colored. And then on top of that is another smaller square that is white, and so it looks like there's this colored border, but really it's just a bunch of squares piled on top of each other. All right. So this is the size and the shape of the thing I want. I would like to eventually talk more about game art, and I'm thinking about taking the opportunity now to do so because there's lots of details about developing games. This is one that people are often interested in, and it's difficult to describe without demonstrating, and this is a great opportunity to do that. So, this is a card. It has a scale that is evened out at 100% in all dimensions. The card item is likewise 100% of everything. Underneath that means that this is, and by the way, the one above that is also 100%. So that means that I can rely on the scaling numbers here as actual numbers of what this card is. Originally, this was a plane, or in other words, a square. It's flat, it's square. That's it. But these scaling issues are less than 100%. In other words, they are squished both lengthwise and width, and the width is shorter. These are the dimensions I'm looking for. I would like to duplicate that, and it is 0.225 and 0.3. In other words, if I take a brand new plane and make the scale 225 and 0.3, I have a plane that is the same dimensions as the card. Great. But you notice the orientation is totally different. In other words, the rotation of it is totally different. I'm going to zero out the position. So this is like the same thing. It is not visible at all because it's actually looking edgewise at from the camera view. But if I begin to rotate it, we can see it in the viewport. So, and it's catching the light and all that stuff. Okay, cool. All of these cards are, if I remember correctly, rotated 90 degrees and then 180. There we go. As well, I think, actually, hold on. The rotation, I don't want to describe 3D rotations at this point. There's no need to go into too much detail here. But what I do want to say is, here we go. The rotations needed to be a certain thing, and I'm rotating it 90 degrees a couple of times, which is causing an interesting thing we'll talk about another time called gimbal lock, making it a little difficult to see the right orientation to match everything else. Everything else is already accounting for this crazy gimbal lock issue. Long story short, I'll just do this for you and we'll figure it out later. So right now, I am just going to color this white so we can see it clearly and it looks like a card. This should look exactly like our cards that we have been seeing in the engine. So if I do this, it's going to get out of the way. Literally, the table, this card stayed in place. The table moves. You see how that works? And we're also moving the camera, moving the thing. It's like this is the only thing that stayed in place. As I come back to this view, the card is sitting there in the middle. Yes, it is exactly the same size and dimensions as the other cards. This is great. So this is a good representation for what I would like to use as our special item that indicates where a card will be placed on the table. Okay. And in fact, I need to ensure that it looks appropriate for this view. I mean, that's the right size and everything. We just confirmed that. That's great. But now I need to do this. In other words, this thing actually does need to be rotated again. I want to place it on the table, so we'll do that. Sure. But we need to orient this, and I'm just going to reset this rotation for a second to see if that's actually closer. It certainly is. Look at that. Magic how that happened. It's like I planned it. So in other words, this is a card laying on the table. In fact, let me zero that out again and go -4. Because if I remember correctly, that's how much I'm asking these cards to sit on the table. Good. I will remember that my avatar is actually causing difficulty to see this clearly. There we go. You see? So this card object that I made is now here, and I'm just putting it on the table, or making it appear that it's on the table. And I'm realizing this is not exactly -4. Remember that -4 number that I was using in the code here? Well, that's not the same as this. This is looking like -5 or whatever. Yeah. So what does that mean? Well, I think it's because the number that I'm using in the code is actually an offset from the position of this object. Interesting. Let's test that theory. If I drag this, I'm going to name this right now because I kind of want to. Let's put the card formation. Let's call it formation position, something like that. Cursor. You'd be shocked how long programmers take to decide the names of things. In the spirit of properly organizing names of things turns out to be a really important thing. So, okay, before I do that, I'm going to change the parenting of this object. It's sitting out in space all on its own, but I'm going to parent it under the hand, just like the other cards were. And that should be, I think, this is place. Actually, this says position. Huh. In world coordinates. Huh. Well, I'm curious. I'll just test it and see what happens. What I expect to see is something that relates to this number. Is this 4? You know what? It's like the -4, actually. That's funny. And this does look like how it moves, apparently, when we move cards around. Isn't that funny? Well, given that I do set this object in this way on this script, and those objects are literally parented under that thing, I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to, I'm literally just playing around in the engine right now. I'm going to remember that you can't see if it's behind my avatar. I'm literally playing in the engine right now, but as I do, shoot, I guess I'll just remove this for now and come back and make it again. As I change these numbers, it is moving in a very similar way to these cards as I grab them and move them in our view. When we're placing our cards on the table, the cards move around the table in a very similar way. It's very interesting. It's these two axes together that make up the position on the table. So this sort of looks right, as weird as that is, because that matches what we have for the cards that we place with our code. All right, cool. So, I expect to be able to use our new object that is parented on there just for the time being. There it is. Or no, where is it? There it is. It is not parented on there, but we want it to be. I did all those changes while I was in play mode, and the thing about our game engine, Unreal should do this too, and not just Unity. While you are in play mode, I'm playing right now, you are able to, as I mentioned, go into the engine and move things around like this. But of course, it wants to save the scene as you have configured it. So all these changes are going to go away as soon as I stop. And that's what happened. I just forgot that, but that's exactly what's going on. So even the name of this thing, formation cursor, I would like to leave it exactly like this, but where's the position I liked? I forgot already. I will check the position that I like, and then I will change. Well, that's not. For crap. It's making me adjust interface elements instead. Okay. It was -5, wasn't it? Something like that. Yeah. Therefore, I will put this at -5 and call it good. It's roughly in the right position. No, I'm going to take that back. I actually want to zero this out. Here's the thing. I'm going to make a prefab out of it. There it is. This is now an original that can be copied really easily and used, just like our original cards that we are making and manipulating and turning into the individual 50 cards that we use for the game. Great. This is like that. But it is, I'll just remove it. I don't need it anymore. It's called formation cursor, and I'm going to call it up in code, and I'm going to place it where I need to, precisely like I do these cards. So at the beginning of the game, these cards are here, but literally, and I did the same thing as I was doing just now. I was playing in the engine to see what I need. So when I first made my hand of cards, I used these, but I don't use these anymore. I literally delete them. In fact, I delete them in code. I should probably clean that up someday, but I don't care. Instead, I would like to likewise create a formation cursor and place it precisely like I place this card. In other words, to do place formation cursor. This is just notes in the code, so I don't forget that this is where and what I want to do. I'm actually good with this. I don't need to keep these notes. I know what this is now. Yep. There were specific notes on numbers that I needed to remember, but I'm good. And the cards in the hand is likewise something that is created. It's this code here that creates them. Yes, I make new cards in hand, a number of them, right? And this has to do with how many cards are in your hand. Well, we actually would like a number of cards that are going to sit on the table. This is a different number. When I get 5 cards, I place 3 on the table. When I have 7 cards in my hand, I place 4 on the table. So the number of formation cursors I need is different. It's a different number. I recognize that this is the number, the cards to play. Here we go. This says, give me some new game objects. They're just empty and blank. And then for each one of them, I think I use, the cards. No, yeah, that's exactly right. The number of cards the player 2 has to put, has in hand is used. And that's what this. So for each one of those, actually spawn the card. This means make a copy of that original card that we use for all cards. This thing right here. It's got the back, it's got the front, it's got the border, it's got a bunch of things actually. It's got all the name of the card and even some attack effects and stuff that are hidden until we need it, blah, blah, blah. Well, cool. But we just spawn it and then we position it and we parent it. We parent it just like we want to do for our cursor. Cool. We don't want to do the same number. We want to do this number, actually. But we want to do the very similar stuff. So, let me just look through this. This is, saved card position, rotation, and lift. These are part of the mechanics of inspecting your cards in your hand. Both lifting it up, but also moving it around so that it knows where to go when you let go. And we will continue to use those. This is fanning out the cards in a very even way, no matter how many cards there are. Very good, very good. We won't need any of this. The cards in hand have their own this is where we actually set all of the individual things about the cards, their color, their name, all that goodness. Okay, and this is a duplicate of something else we do for the cards we actually use in combat. I think I just grabbed that code and threw it together for what we need here. So this here is a function that is called to configure the cards in hand. And conveniently, it has numbers of things that we need to use for putting those things on the table. So I'm really tempted to use the same function to do these things. There's no reason to call a separate function if I do, and I already have this data here. So that's great. Up at the top, I define all my variables, the data we need to remember in my script. That includes cards in hand. And I think, and it does include the player hand itself, I think we do need to have the similar thing for formation cursor. I'm saying cursors, plural, because there are many of them. That's what this does. This says, don't just give me one game object, give me a number of them. Don't know how many yet. Cool. Cards to play is the number we're going to use. That's fine. So I think this is good. What I've done is said my script has a place to remember the objects that will be the formation cursors. There will be a number of them, this number. And while I'm here and I have this already known, and before I position them and configure the cards, because I don't care about the cards, I'm caring about the cursors at this point, I'm going to configure, I'm just going to spawn. Actually, I don't need to do anything other than spawn. I just need to make a copy of these formation things. I might need to actually clean up any ones that are already there as well. Thing is, if I spawn a bunch of things, I need to think about what happens the next round, and when I restart the entire match, those things might be hanging around. I should probably clean them up as well. Well, why not? Clean up and spawn. Formation cursors. I like the name. So, formation cursors is the name of our thing, and it already knows that we're going to do give me a bunch of new ones, but I don't want num cards to tell me how many there are. It is cards to play. That's how many I want. Now that this goes top to bottom, so I know that by the time it gets to here, it's already figured out how many that is, and I can rely on that. Cool. Otherwise, this will start to look very familiar to the code that is just above it, because I need to go through each of these formation cursors length, and I need to, I'm sure I'm going to need to do something with them. First things first, I need to spawn it, yes. Well, I could peek at how I do it here just to reference it, but I kind of already know. This is on the other script, the combat script. It takes the name of the card, which I'm already giving it here, and says go instantiate, that's a fancy word for spawn, a brand new copy from a thing that is in a folder called resources. And I'll show you that. It's in a folder called resources, and please give me a copy of that thing with this name. It's in a folder called resources. There's the name. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Thank you. Yeah, formation cursor. Since I'm going through each one of them, I now have access to one at a time. It is a series of them, and I've made this many of them, but I'm going through each one, and now I'm saying, yes, 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 please. Oh, instantiate a new one. That is Visual Studio, you are really not helping when you do that. It wants to help me by giving me all sorts of options based on where I am at the moment, and it is absolutely in my way, so I can't even read the thing that I'm trying to do right now. Okay, load. Okay, so I'm literally just doing exactly what this says. Gosh, look at all that garbage. Seriously, like I'm trying to copy, I'm trying to type, and it's like giving me a problem. Okay, so I need to do the angle brackets. This angle brackets gives me a space to put in a type. Another name for type is class. In this case, this is a class. So I am trying to load a prefab that is a game object. So all this makes sense. The name of the game object goes here. So that's what I'm going to do. Just going to do the same thing. Game object. And the name of the game object is formation cursor. Okay. Yes. Okay. This looks good, and I just want to confirm this looks the same. So I would rather just move on and not worry about it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So this is going to instantiate, in other words, copy, by looking in the resources, any resources folder in my project, but it's going to look for it by name and make a copy of that, basically do this. So when it does that, it does give me a return value. This tooltip is telling me the return value is a game object, it is actually the game object that was copied. So when I say go through each one of these brand new things that I made, these are empty, but when I go through each one, I'm saying fill that empty slot with a reference to this one that was just made. Cool. And just to sort of prove the point, I will be able to name it something fun like a formation cursor. Okay, this is probably a garbage name that I will fix later. And I assume, do other things with it. I am going to do something else with it. I'm going to do what I did here, which is set its parent. There we go. Yeah, this, I do the same thing here, and I save it as a variable called card. Oh, I should save it as a local variable too. But I also name it, and then down here I say, please parent it under the, this function parents it to the play field because it is the combat script thing. This parents it to the player hand, and I'm going to do the same thing. In fact, I should just copy that. This is what I want to do. The same. So formation cursors, each one of these, hello, please also be parented to player hand. And I kind of want to hide it. I mean, while I test, I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to keep it visible. But I do probably want to hide it. My theory of the case is, as I make all of them, I only want to show one at a time as I place new cards on the table, right? Because the player's going to be dragging them around on the table. And that's when I want to see them. That's indicating a new mechanism in this system that I haven't thought about yet, but I will have to do. All right. For now, I just want to spawn these things. Cool. Yeah, in fact, there's more to this system that I haven't really thought about yet. Yes, number of cards to play is set here. That's telling me how many of these formation cursors to do. But then think about it. I'm thinking a few steps ahead and realizing as I place a card on the table, I want to make one of these appear and place it in place. The others are still hidden. But then I place the next one, right? So I need to actually remember, wait, which one am I on? Am I on the first one, the second one, the third one, etc.? And have I already placed all of them? If I have, what do I do? That's a rule I haven't even thought about yet. I guess this is a teaching moment. This would be an example of why we are approaching this the way we are. There are going to be cases like this where I have a rule that hasn't been thought about yet. And we will think about it once we get there. There's a sort of a trust factor. We will trust that we will eventually run into all the issues we need to think through. That sort of assumes that we will not know all of the details. Is that wrong? Should we stop? Should we figure it all out? No, we should just go and plan that what we first develop is going to be tests. It is not going to be the final game. So what I mentioned earlier about we are making a game that's really just a big old test at first, and then we'll actually make the game. It's in 2 stages. This is an indication of, this is an example of why that is true. Yeah, I mean, I'm realizing now I'm going to need to count which card, how many of these has already been placed. We're going to have a rule for what happens when you try to place a 4th card on a table that's only supposed to be having 3 cards to play. etc. There's things we got to do. I knew early on there was going to be some really interesting mechanisms that happen when you want to place a card on a table and there's already something in its place. I want them to shift around. In fact, I kind of want to do that with the cards here in the hand too. Actually be able to move cards around in your hand. But as you place it on the table too, if there's something already in place here, I kind of want it to shift around and move. Move to a different lane, move to a different attack position. This would make a lot of sense. It'll make way more sense when you can see it. It's hard for me to describe it clearly, but I know this is something we want. So we've already developed that mechanism. that came about early on when we were thinking this stuff through. We haven't been able to see it yet because, frankly, these systems weren't built yet, but we're getting very close, actually. All right. I also want to clean up. If there is any one of these things already on the the player hand object, because I'm going to parent these to the player hand, kind of want to deal with that. So actually, these should just be formation cursors. So wait, are these already destroyed? If I do this, are they already destroyed? That's a good question. Shall we test? I think we should. This will make new objects. They are called formation cursors, so we'll test to see that it actually spawns, it parents it, and calls it that thing. We should see it. I also want to go through a second round to see what happens to them when we do this again. Let's just find out what happens and we'll adjust. So it's kind of the exact same idea that I just described. We are testing it out. We're going to see what's wrong. We're going to find the things we didn't think of, and then we're going to fix it. So here we go. This, that. And at this point, we have made them. Yeah, here we go. Formation cursor. Yeah, they're right here. If I show them, they are exactly here. They were just facing away from us. Oh, I haven't actually oriented them correctly. So we're just looking at the backside. They're hidden. Cool. So they're there. But I do want to know what happens when we do a second round. So let's just quickly play this. What is this? What's this? What in goodness is this? Is it because I just turned something on? What happened? What? Stop. What? A new error, if I stop, is likely going to be exactly on the thing I just worked on. So let's just step through as normal. Let's see if we get the error again. No. Okay. So literally, I think it's because I turned this on in the middle of battle. Apparently that causes an error. It'd be interesting to figure out what that error was, but it's not going to stop us. I don't care. I would care if it was an error that we run into through the normal course of play, but I was literally in the engine messing with stuff during play. So if there's an error from that, I don't mind at all. I'm sure that's okay. I will keep an eye out though, just in case. Okay. So I want to see what happens to these things. In fact, I'm going to highlight one, which should continue to have that one selected if it exists when I do this. It does not exist. Cool. So it was actually removed, and 4 new ones came in its place. Good test. Okay, so I answered my question. I was looking, this is right. So I don't need to clean up. This is just done. Well, I guess I could just keep the note there. It is implied that it is cleaned up because I literally just get rid of it. Cool. Awesome. I position this thing, as I mentioned before, position it when we do the positioning of the other things. I think we're in a good place to try this now. Let's place a formation cursor. And here's a tricky thing. Yeah, we're going to have to figure this out. This is saying, give me the card in hand based on one of the cards that are in your hand. As I mentioned, there's like 5 cards in your hand, but you place 3 down on the table. So those numbers are different. The number of cards in your hand and the number of formation cursors. So like this is exactly where I need to start figuring this out. I'm going to place cards on the table. And I actually just need to remember how many I have placed on the table. It's literally another number I need to remember. Number of cards played. Sounds like a good one. And it can be 0 to begin with. That's fine. I will, like I did with cards to play, remember to reset that to 0. In fact, I should probably reset that to 0 immediately. Number of cards played is 0. Okay. Pardon me a second while I just confirm things are still working. Okay, testing test. Okay, good. So while I spawn the thing, I want to just remember how many cards have I played. Well, I literally just cleared all the cards that have been played. Sorry, not the cards, these cursors that will indicate a card will be placed on the table at this location. In the formation, there's an attack position, a lane. This cursor is there to help us with that. I've cleared all these cursors away. I made the new ones. And I'm saying the number that have been played, in other words, how many of these cursors have been used, is 0. I'm going to just reset that right then and there. That's a good place to do it. Okay. That number is going to help me because, as I say, give me a particular formation cursor, some number here, and it's not I. This variable I is actually related to the number of cards in player 2's hand, and this works for the cards in hand. It's terrible for the formation cursors. Instead, I need to say number of cards played. Because if only one is played, I'm sorry, if the first one is played, it will be element 0, the first formation cursor. That works great. All right. Otherwise, I think the rest of this is the same. These things are parented to the same object. I'm hoping this actually works, but I have no idea, and it is why we test. So I'm going to restart this. And what we are looking for is, let's see, there's an object that's been created. I don't think it's actually oriented correctly, so this could be all wrong, actually. Let's see. Here. Okay, I'm going to take this and do this. There it is. You see the numbers change. What I have selected in the hierarchy panel here is the very first formation cursor. So these numbers are actually changing because the script is moving it. Cool. Unfortunately, it is upside down. It is facing away from us and not oriented correctly. Let's fix that. What is the orientation? Can I just say 45? Is that about maybe 45? Well, that's better, I guess. This is what if I do? Yeah, okay. So I will have to orient it correctly. See, look at these. I'm seeing new rules that I have to come up with for this system because along with placing it and making it look pretty, and we'll get there. What happens when I decide not to place it? I put it in the hand again, right? This should go away. What happens if I instead inspecting it? This should go away. This should only be apparent when I'm trying to place it on the table. There's actually a visual hiding and showing mechanism that needs to be part of this grid that we've been working on yesterday and stuff, where the cursor itself is shown and hidden based on that. Okay. Notice it's exactly in the middle of the card. You see that? Well, that makes a lot of sense. We are saying precisely put it in the same place. So let's see. First things first, I think I actually need to say, give me the correct orientation. And I suppose all of the cards could just be set this way once. But whatever, I'll just do this. Again, what we have is a test. And me spending time on things that don't matter is like wrong. So I think that's good. We can test that one thing in a second. But I believe this number can be made better by simply increasing this. Yes, I know it's going to be more than that, but I'm just going to see if it's the right direction, see if the orientation is right. We're testing. So we have a new object. It still looks white, but we'll fix that. And negative 45 is not the right angle. Good to know. All right. What is the right angle? That's interesting, right? I wonder. We haven't talked about 3D space and the difference between global space and local space. But, you know what? Oh, there you go. Okay. What this means is we have a decent location. Actually, this might need to be just so the card is not intersecting with it. Let's just continue to fiddle with that until it looks right. I have a feeling that's too much now, but we'll see. Actually, that's okay. What I'm looking for is the white, or the light gray items on the table. So I want to make sure they don't intersect. I want to make sure our new card is on top. Okay, cool. It is below the actual card we're trying to place, and it's showing the location in the right place. That's great. Cool. Just doesn't look right yet. Let's make it look right. So what we're looking at is an early representation of this mechanism. I'm going to place a card on the I'm looking at the card, and I'm going to place it on the table. And as I do, I want to know what the position it's going to sit at on the table when I let go. I'm going to let go, and it's going to look cool, but right now it does this. Well, I need to know, it is going to sit on the table, but actually it's going to stay right there. I'm going to need to adjust all these mechanisms at some point. But right now, I just want to make this look better. It's like a white square. It's not good. Position is correct. It moves with the card. There's multiple things, and that's great. Yeah, isn't that interesting? I need to do like this and let go, and then I need to grab the next one. And as I do, place it here and let go, and have two of them there, right? Move on to the next one. That's what I need to do. Yes. So I'm thinking about the look of it at the same time that I'm thinking about the rules of it. Yeah, lots to do. Okay, so again, I just want to sanity check. I want a sanity check. I want to make sure this actually does what I just saw it do all on its own. I don't need to do any more code. Okay, good. I'm going to go make this thing look better. What we've got is a square that has been squished. It's a good time to talk about game art. And an interesting fact about game art, the artwork that we see, for example, on the visual effects. As these cards battle, you'll see some visual effects. They are just, line art, really. But it's important to note that some of these effects are actually on an invisible square. The artwork is painted with some color and some transparent pixels. That's why we can see through it, even though it is literally a big square that, covers a larger area. So we're really just seeing the lines that are color, and the pixels that are invisible are, well, they're invisible. But the frames of animation are on a square, and that is a fact of game art. It actually all needs to be imported as a square. I don't need to, but I'll explain why it is most of the time. And there is an exception. I mean, you'll see an exception actually in our battle, because there is some subtle effects on the attack, for example, has two effects on it, two visual effects. It's subtle, but you'll see a gathering of energy on the card itself. And then there is another one that actually shoots energy across. These are two separate effects. One is on the card itself, and that is not a square. How does that work? Well, it's quite literally squished. So it was a square, and I'll show you the frames right now. The square of what is this, the gathering effect? No, some of these effects, you'll see that they're all squares, first of all. But also, this is usually on a square. So when a card gets hit, you'll see that. When a luck win happens, you'll see that. When a card gathers energy to shoot it, it comes from the edge, comes in, and gathers to be used then by the energy that shoots out. This is the one that actually gets put on top of the card, gathering energy to shoot. The shoot one, I think, is here. Yeah, there we go. So this doesn't look like it, because, wow, what's that? It's big. Well, think of it squished, and now it looks exactly like it, right? It's a narrow beam of energy, right? And I literally make it long and thin so that it looks like it's shooting across, right? These frames are ridiculous. I'm laughing because it's terrible. Likewise, this is also squished. It is shaped to the dimensions of the card, which is narrow and long, right? We don't notice it very much because although the pixels are stretched in ways and squished in others, we just don't notice it. It goes by too fast and all that. Well, this is still a square. All of our artwork comes in as a square. This is an image file. It is a square. More than that, it is a very particular set of dimensions. The pixel number across and the pixel number down, first of all, is even. It is a square. But also, you'll see this number here, 512. Couldn't I just make it an even round number like 500? Well, I could, but the way that computers love to compress is in bytes. A byte is a chunk of memory. It is made up of 8 bits. The significant number there is 8. because all of this 512 by 512 is actually a power of 8. And if I didn't make this animation 512 by 512, I would have made it something like 256 by 256. That is also a power of 8. It happens to be half of 512 by 512. If I didn't do that, I'd make it 128 by 128. Again, that's half. And if I keep having it more and more and more, eventually I'd get down to 8. It's a little silly, but if you get used to game art, you get used to these numbers. 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, and then it goes up from there. 1024, 2048, etc. The reason is because computers love to compress this stuff and make it easy to store in data. That artists don't care about this, they care about the look of the thing. But because it's going to go in the computer, they learn to work with these numbers to make their images. Otherwise, if I had, for example, made this frame from 500 by 500, the computer, like literally when importing into Unity, it would adjust it and make it 512 by 512. It would distort the image that I had carefully painted. And as the artist, I would be very upset. Please don't distort my image. Instead, let's just start with these silly numbers that the computer wants. Fine. That's what I'll do, right? That's kind of how the artist thinks about it. That's how I thought about it. And that's how we will think about it right now. Because I may not have animated frames. I might not have animated frames. But I will. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, basically I did this to make these frames. It's a bit silly. I guess I could actually break out the tablet. Yes. Sure. I do that. I mean, if I'm gonna draw, right, might as well. As long as the tablet works. Does the tablet work? Oh, the tablet doesn't work. That's great. Okay, I won't do that. Instead, I will sketch it with the silly mouse, and that'll be good enough. So I'm going to begin with a new image, and I will do a 512 by 512. Again, I just know these numbers because I'm used to it. You would get used to it too. But notice it is square. If you really want to calculate the power of 8, great, go for it. But instead, I'm going to create a new layer of transparency, and I'll hide the background just so I'm going to draw this. Again, most of the pixels that I want for this cursor are going to be clear or transparent. And you know what? Since it is a cursor, I don't need it to look sketchy and weird like visual effects. So maybe this is a good thing. I will do it with my mouse instead. I'm going to just box select. I'll use rounded corners. That sounds fine. Yeah, actually, all this sounds good. And what I am thinking about is just making sure that it's not exactly at the edge, just for visual goodness, I suppose. I am just going to make it filled. And, you know, let's just keep it really simple. Because I'd rather just test this out, and I will make it look pretty later. So literally box selecting the inside and just erasing it on this layer means that, I'm not even going to use this background actually, means that I have an image, it has a border, good enough. I guess I can make it look slightly fancy. Why not? grow it out by 4. Yes. Okay, I'm going to make it look fancy by shrinking and growing the selection and painting inside and just doing more of that. Okay. Good enough. So when I say fancy, this is like the cheapest form of that. This now could be the cursor, right? What I'm trying to indicate by that thin line is that this is supposed to be precision. The thicker border on the outside is supposed to indicate that this is clearly visible, but whatever. This is good enough. In fact, as I squish this into the size of the card, these pixels will also squish. So, what I would do if I were being more fancy about it is squish this, draw my border, and then unsquish it back to a square. And then I would export that. I would let this drawing program, GIMP, actually do the stretching and squishing and stuff to make sure that it looks as good as it can before I export it. But you know what? This is fine. This is fine. Okay. I will export that later, and that'll be good. Yep. Okay. I actually need to put this in my assets for Shuffle Wars. I'm going to put it straight into the project. As I go back to Unity, thank you, I'm done. I'll come back and redo it again if I want to. Good enough. As I come back into Unity, Unity will calculate it and recognize there's a brand new thing. I say, yeah, actually, some of these pixels are transparent. It says, oh, really? I say, yes. And I say, apply that change. Now it's clear. I am going to be aware that some of these pixels, some of the way that I compress this stuff, this has a filter mode, which is going to do the squishing and stretching that I don't like. But the max size and all that stuff is things that I want to kind of keep the same. And that's good enough. Okay. This formation cursor, let's see, I'm going to make a brand new material for this, just for this thing. And I would like it to be unlit transparent is probably just fine. Does this look okay? It sure does. Looks good. Let's go. Oh, I would like a color though, actually. Can I get a color as well, please? There we go. Yeah. Because I haven't used purple, I'm going to use purple. Okay, good. I might need it to be brighter, but for now that's good. Cool. This is going to be called also formation cursor. I'll just call it cursor for now. And because it is a material, I would like to keep it organized and indicate that is a material. Okay, cool. So I brought in the image. I really should organize it better, but that's good enough for now. In textures. Yeah, in textures. Good. And this object can use that material. Yes. So now the border is on there. I mean, it's a very subtle thing, but if I look close, I can see that this edge is thinner than this edge. And that's because it's squished. But I don't care. It's good. It is once. Oh, it's two-sided because that's nice. Okay. So, what have we done? We made a new texture to add to our new object that we are using, and we have coded. I'm hoping that this is going to look fine if I just test it. But if not, we will figure out what is different and make it work. Oh, I have an object in the scene already. That's silly. Hold on. This is because, oh, it's two-sided, right? Which we didn't see before. Right. But now we see it. Actually, it's not very visible, is it? I mean, it's kind of visible. You get the idea what I'm going for now, but it's not bright. Shall we change the color? That's why I didn't bother coloring it in GIMP. Literally, I knew that I would probably want to adjust color. Let's see. Yeah, 50%, please. Sounds good. All right. I knew I would want to adjust the color. There we go. It's a little more. It really needs to be like bright, does it not? I knew that this color option was going to be here. I knew that I would want to adjust the color based on how it looks compared to, why are you so fiddly? Interface. Ugh. I knew it was going to be important to adjust the color based on what I see here, so I just left it white. It's interesting too, this is another thing about game art. All of those effects are also made white against clear, and then I color them. I actually use the game engine to color those pixels as they're brought in. Okay. I don't like how there's extra ones sitting there looking ugly because I can see the backside. So let's move these to a better location to start with. As they are created, I would like to hide until needed. Actually, that is kind of what I want to do. But can we do something like, let's see, where is this object? I think it's visible, actually. It is. It's right where the hand is. I suppose I could set a location that is off screen, like behind the camera, and then when this code is run, it will place it in front of the camera. I guess that's fine. You know what? This is something I'm going to do. I mentioned it's silly that I keep setting this rotation over and over again because it's the same. So I agree with myself. I think it's silly. I'm going to do this instead. When I make it, let's go ahead and set its position and rotation. I don't know what this is yet, but let's start with 0 and move from there. Okay, so in other words, as I create them, position them. I have already parented it, so this should be in relation to that. Let's see. See if that's true. Okay, well, I see objects. They're in a weird place. Is that actually 0? No, it's not. Oh, these are 0. Okay, cool. I say good because although they are sitting there and I don't want them there, I'm saying good because I now know exactly what to do to change that. I want to move them this way, that way, yeah, totally. I want to move them behind the camera, which is going to be like this, like out of frame. So I'll just go for like -2 and -2. That sounds fine. 2 and -2. That sounds fine. 0, 0. That's weird, right? That is weird. What? Why was that? Huh. I'm going to continue to test because the numbers that I'm adjusting don't look like the numbers that, yeah, this is different. This does indeed say 5 and 6. What? Okay. What? So these numbers seem to be doing weird things. I'm going to move it to a really obvious direction one way and see what the result is. That will tell me, that test will tell me where things are. Well, it's definitely behind the camera. See that? It's good that it's behind the camera. That's fine. Actually, that's totally fine. I think I'm done. Oh, hold up. These ones were not done. Why is that? Oh, because I'm saying number of cards played. I copied and pasted code, and I was not being careful about replacing things that had been copied. Whoops. Long story short, I'm just not thinking. All right. So now, when I look at this, I'm seeing all the original cursors back here out of frame. The camera's looking down here, and this is back behind the camera, so that's good. That way, I only see it when I drag something out, right? There we go. Cool. Cool. So that's what I mean. Now I want this cursor on the table. I got a cursor on the table. Yay! Cool. So this is kind of indicating where in the position it's going to be. Right? Easier to see now what's going on in terms of this mechanism. And what I expect is, what I would like is as I let go, right, instead of the card coming back here, because that's what it's supposed to do here, actually. Right? That's what this was. But now I want to change the rule to say, yeah, but if you have actually put something out here, like a new formation cursor, now when I let go, I want to do something different. Instead of putting it back in the hand, I want to actually leave it out here. Yeah, there's so many other details, but one is that the card will be left there so I can go select another one. That's the idea. I can place another one. That's the idea. But also, like, as I leave this out, you see how there's a gap in the hand now? The shiftables mechanism would actually be able to take over and shift all of these together. It would actually collapse that space where a card is in my hand and put the 4 cards together. It's a detail, and I don't care about it at this point, but I am thinking about it because it will happen. Okay, cool. So we have a formation cursor that indicates where the card will sit on the table when I let go. Cool. All right. We did a little bit of artwork. And I'm going to save this here. This is just saving the scene. But I'm going to take a second to break. I'll be right back. I'm not entirely sure. My switcher is not switching. That's upsetting. Okay. Let's play through this again and take a look at where we are. Play the game. We start a round. Round one, we look at our cards. We have 5 cards, and we can place 3 on the table. Okay. There might need to be a way to indicate to the player, hey, you have 3 cards you need to play. It would be good, actually. Should I put all 3 cards on the table? I mean, the cursors on the table? That would actually make it extremely clear. That makes sense. Interesting. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should have the cursors not hidden and behind the camera, but actually on the table. In a lane of their own and in a attack position of their own. Yeah, actually, that kind of makes some sense. Wow, I'm getting very close to the point where I need to implement the shiftables, a separate system I've already developed, but I need to implement them here. I'm getting really close to that, actually. Interesting. These go away. And that needs to look a lot cleaner. It's literally disappearing because I hide the entire hand. But that's a really messy transition. So I need to fix that. go through round 1, and then we go to round 2. Those transitions are messy. I don't care too much because the mechanics are correct. It's just at some point I'm going to have to figure out the mechanics to make it not look messy, and that will be later, I guess. So this does have the 4 lanes and the 4 attack positions. This is cool. I like it. But we do need to allow the player to place the thing. Yeah, I'm kind of running into the place where I mentioned earlier in the stream how we kind of need to build pieces separately and put it together. It doesn't come together all at once. The analogy of the table, you make the table legs and the tabletop, and it looks wrong until it looks right. Well, we're exactly at that point because I need to implement the mechanism to lay the cards on the table, which is immediately going to promote the issue that, as I have set up here, the formation is set as this diagonal. That's all it is. But as soon as I can place it somewhere else on the table, this formation could be whatever. Right now, this card is first, this card is second, this card is third. And 1, 2, 3 is that's the only data I have on it. Which card is first, which card is second, which card is third. The position of it, like which lane it's in, and the attack order. Actually, the attack order is that first, second, third. But the lane that it's in is not even data that I'm tracking at all. I just hard code this formation. That has to change. It allows for this sort of obvious, oh, the cards have come together and now they're in battle. That's visually obvious, right? But there is no mechanism that says these cards are close enough that they should be turned over and put in battle. That has never been implemented. That has not been implemented yet. So this is just a fact that I've set these at 2 angles and they come together this way. I need to develop that mechanism, literally, that says, hey, you are close enough to another card, flip over and start battling. You're entering the battle. The same time, I don't know if they have met another card in battle unless I have some data that tells me what lane it's in, each card, what lane it's in, so that I know that it's met a card in the same lane on the other side, right? The opponent can also be in these lanes. And it doesn't turn over unless it's advanced and it meets the other card. It doesn't just turn over because it's at the center line. It could be because it went over and met him over there, or because the card was like leading on the other side and met over here on our side. All those could happen. And none of that mechanism is actually together. Step 1 is figuring out the data that is there and the data that's missing. I have data that says, cards can be first, second, third, fourth. That's actually already here, because technically speaking, this thing that's handling the battle has data talking about the cards that are in play, and they are actually listed first, second, third. This came came about because of the cards to put in battle. This attack lane stuff. It looks like I started to work on this and I haven't finished it. That's what's going on. I have two. Let's look at this again. When I say let's start a new round, there are we start a new match and there's new cards. The cards are not yet in the hand, but I can say new round and now they're in the hand. Okay. They haven't yet gone into play. No one has put cards on the table yet. But the cards to play, this is effectively indicating which cards will be laid down, and there's 3 of them. The important thing to note for us in terms of attack order is this says this comes first, this comes second, this comes third. That literally translates into the attack order when I do this. So, and not to get too confusing about it, but I, for now, just happen to pick the first card in the hand to lay down first, and the second card to lay down second. So we'll ignore that because I want the player to be able to choose whichever card they want. But the card that is first is already data that we know because it is first inside a series or an array that holds which cards to play. There are 3 of them. Which one's first? Well, it's this one. So that's already known. What I don't know is which lane it's in. Is it in this lane, or that lane? That's not data that I have at all. So presumably, that might be what I am doing here. This, I don't even think I'm using this. Attack lane, cards in battle. Yeah, what is this? What am I doing here? I don't even, I honestly, I'm forgetting when did I put that in. This is the battle script. This is called, yeah, see, here I am testing. Yeah, see, this is just early stuff. So I just threw this in because I knew eventually I was going to have this information. Attack lane, actually this name is terrible because I'm talking about an attack order and a lane of battle. So actually I need to disambiguate and clarify that name. It's a terrible name, but it is an array. Just like the cards that will go into battle. Actually, this is the wrong place. It's these cards to play. This is even in the wrong place. This is garbage. Just to point out how disorganized this is. Cards to play is taking from the hand and putting them on the table. That's what this is. But this also happens to indicate the attack order. Which one's first, second, third. This would be perhaps indicating which lane to go into battle. And I'm just going to call it battle. I do not think I used this data at all yet. I guess we'll find out. Any error? Yep. Okay. I do use this somewhere. It's here in red. Let's see. Where do I use this? Yeah, it's the cards that are being put in play. On do play, it's this is the point where I say, please do that. Put them on the table. Well, long story short, I'm just going to replace this. Oh my goodness. Okay. But I am just going to leave these where they were, whatever I was testing before. Gosh, I cannot believe how much Visual Studio's interface gets in the way of me actually typing. So bizarre. But by doing that, I am ensuring that they are in the same place. I'm going to actually call it battle lane. Thank you. Oh, oh. And this is temporary. This is me testing this out. What I saw before when I was looking at this is that it was already filled in with some sort of data. Battle lane is here after, and this makes way more sense. After cards to play, which takes it from the hand and puts it in play, it uses these as the indicator of what to do, right? I haven't yet used this, but I think based on the formation that I do, this diagonal formation, I just went ahead and populated this with the correct number. In other words, I say, yeah, give me this battle lane here. What I expect, though, is as I do this, I'm actually going to be saying which card is first, which card is second, which card is third. Okay? First, second, third. But I'm also going to be saying which lane it's in. So if I say, hey, this is, let's see, card 0, 1, 2, 3. This is card number 3, and I would like it to be first. Okay, that's the same as doing this. Just change that to a 3. But I think I can also say I would like it to be in a battle lane, 0, 1, 2. So first in lane 2. I think what that means is this would be like, oh, this is the wrong player, but I guess I'm just demonstrating. This would also be 3 things. And I would say this has card number 3 in lane, in this third lane here. So this might look like this, with this number here and the same number in this position here. In other words, this got really confusing, but basically this is the card index, number 3. It is first. It is going to be attacking first, so it's up near the front of the line. And the attack lane is 0, 1, 2. So that same card, number 3, is sitting here in this position on this array, because I might have, I don't know, card 0 like here, which is the middle, yeah. And then I might have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I might have this card over here, which would be 4 in this lane here, and 4 as the last one. So this is attack order. This is the battle lane. So placing those cards in that way would look like this. And you'll see me do this over and over. I think I've already done it a few times this stream. Playing around with it in the engine to see what I actually would like my code to do, because I'm manually doing it and paying attention to things like these numbers. In other words, I believe I know what to do, because this number here, 4, for example, is the cards in hand, that index of which card I have in the hand. This cards to play is placing that number 4 in the position like first, second, or third, right? And it's definitely going to be third. It's also saying put that same number 4 here, because this is the first lane. So last position, first lane. The card is 4. So I think this interface is already ready to grab that data and put it in these things in this way, according to those mechanics, those rules. And that will result in data that would actually make a formation that makes some sense. I'm describing, actually, the formation that I did is exactly like this because I just did the same diagonal formation. But think about it. I should be able to change my own formation. So that's good because I could use this data now in battle. Actually, I think what I did is it set the cards for player 1 on accident. But I could use this in the battle. As part of this data, I don't yet do anything other than the attack order, but I could also use now the lane order, or sorry, the lane information. So that would be next, I guess. First things first, I would need to translate this interface that we've been playing with that does, allow me to look at cards and then place them on the table, and now we have a fancy cursor. I would translate when I let go, not only would I want to see that card stay there, but I would set that data exactly the way I just described manually. And I would also want to allow a second cursor to show up when I place a new card. So those would be the next steps. We do this step by step, and we're getting there. If I did that, right, not only would we see cards sitting there on the table and stuff, not only would we see 3 cursors on the table and stuff, not only would we have data that would be tracking our formation as we would like to configure it, our custom battle formation, but I could then use that data and begin to work on what happens when we actually go to battle and actually implement rules that would detect if cards have met in a particular lane, then let them turn over. Right now, it's just because these are the 2 leading cards, but although there can be only 1 lead because there's 2 players, this could come out in a very different way. And it's going to take some rules that we haven't developed yet in order to make that happen. I will be able to develop those rules and get the mechanism to work once I have that data there. So I literally need to complete this mechanism so that I can set that data, so that this can actually set lane and attack order for each of the cards that you want to play, and then I can develop the rules in battle that actually make use of this data. So that is next. Isn't that exciting? Of course it is, because there's nobody on stream and who cares. As it is, I believe we have shown off enough of the game today to call it good. The plan is to continue as we have been. We are coming really close to a place where, as I mentioned, we're going to be changing some of the rules of battle and making use of a brand new set of tactics the players could use, setting their own custom formations. That's going to be wild and crazy and fun and cool, and can't wait to show this off to more people once people show up on stream, and we can have fun with that. In the meantime, saying this to absolutely no one, thank you very much. I enjoy the fact that I have the ability to stream this to people and put this on YouTube. If you can, show up on stream when we stream. Follow us and join in the discussion. We're going to keep developing this game, and once it gets interesting with rules that we can test and big variations on the rule set to make the game fun, it'll be much more exciting. We're very close to that. Until then, have fun, take care, be good. See ya.